This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Thanks also to our friends at Woodbine for their sponsorship of this and other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine, pick, bet, and cheer on great racing north of the border. We have our trip to the Queen's Plate scheduled for a little bit later in June, and we'll have a little Queen's Plate preview talk coming up. I'll get to that in a second, but first let me hit promos coming up here at Capital OTB over the next couple of days. First programming note, we will, with the holiday, be on with an OTB Live Monday afternoon, so stay tuned for that. Obviously, with the Monday holiday, some of the bigger venues will be racing, so we'll jump in with an afternoon program on Monday afternoon, so mark that on your calendar. Tomorrow, continues the 3% bonus on Churchill wagers with your Capital OTB bet account. If you're playing Churchill, you have a chance to pick up the player bonus, an extra 3%. Some restrictions apply. Check out the website for more information, capitalotb.com. Today there's also a Fan Appreciation Day at the Big G's branch. That is in Whitehall. That runs from 1 until 5 today. First 50 folks who adore a bet voucher giveaway at them, a program. There's a contest, food and beverage. Should be a lot of fun, but more importantly, gives us our chance to say thank you to you for your patronage out in the Whitehall area. Big G's this afternoon from 1 until 5. Tomorrow there's a $100 win-a-bet contest right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. We'd love to see you here to enjoy all the racing action and take a shot at the extra $100 in the win-a-bet contest. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, today's show, towards the bottom of the hour, we will be joined by Jason Beem. You hear him currently as the early part of the meet announcer at Monmouth. He's filling in for Frank Miramati, who's going to wrap up at Santa Anita and then head to Monmouth for the rest of the year. But it was announced yesterday that Jason Beem will now be the announcer for the revamped Colonial Downs. So I thought we would check in with Jason and get some thoughts on the Colonial, the new gig down at Colonial. We used to talk to Jason fairly regularly on the weekday show when he was out at Portland Meadows, but he's been at Portland Meadows, Louisiana Downs. He's done some Gulfstream Park West, but again, he was announced yesterday as Colonial Downs is setting up to reopen. Jason Beem, the new announcer there. But as he is also at Monmouth currently, I thought we'd get some thoughts on nice stakes action today at Monmouth because they have a really nice stakes card. So we'll touch on all of that with Jason, again, towards the bottom of the hour. He'll be live via phone, but yesterday we caught up with Mark Casse to talk a little War of Will. Had a nice, we've got about 25 minutes or so with Mark Casse, and as I say, talks a little War of Will and the Preakness, ranks the Preakness on his career resume. That's interesting. Talks a little bit about how War of Will is going to prep to the Belmont and when they're going to head to New York with that one. Then we went back to last weekend to talk a little bit about some of his stakes wins last weekend up at Woodbine, and at least one of those will play into the Queen's Plate. He's had some runners this afternoon as well at Woodbine and Churchill that we're going to update, and one of those is Skywire in the Marine this afternoon at Woodbine, who is another potential Queen's Plate runner. And then got an update on Chocolate Kisses, his nice 3-year-old, and talked a little bit about a horse he has headed to the Penn Mile later on. But keep your eyes on Perfect Alibi. If you didn't see this one, just about a week and a half or so ago down at Churchill. Debut 2-year-old filly who was phenomenal. Perfect Alibi. And we show the stretch run to that and get a little update on where she might be headed next from Mark Casse. So we'll kick the show off talking a little bit Preakness and beyond with trainer Mark Casse.
It'll be your match as Jim, but maybe importantly, we'll go back and look last year where he won with Will Markham. And congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
And so that, let's start tomorrow. We'll start more. The moment I was at Owen down number 5 in here.
But boy, a nice stretch run from Tyler Gaffleone. Saved some ground on the rail and came up the inside to win the Preakness last Saturday. Just give us your feelings. Your first Triple Crown win. What were you feeling as they came down the stretch and War Will kind of pulled away?
Well, I was worried. I was remembering back a couple years ago when I thought Classic Empire was going to win. So I waited to feel victory until he crossed the wire. But it was just a magnificent feeling, and I know that I hugged my wife harder than I've ever hugged her.
And we're watching him here come up the lane and get it done. Revenge isn't the proper word, but there had to be a little bit of vindication because certainly this winter down at the fairgrounds, he showed the level of talent he had. Wasn't quite able to show that, obviously, in Louisville because of the circumstances. So, again, there had to be some level of vindication to get him up first in the second jewel of the Triple Crown.
Yeah, maybe not vindication as much as satisfaction.
Okay.
I think that might be a better word for it. He had so many things go wrong, and I just never thought he got to give his full potential, and to see him do it was very gratifying.
And, obviously we all saw the trouble in the Kentucky Derby, and I mentioned he started that Fairgrounds series out in such fine fashion with the Lecomte and the Risen Star, and then he had the trouble in the Louisiana Derby. And I will say, I was watching NBC that day. They picked up on it pretty quickly. They came back from the commercial and showed Will of War come out of the gate. And really, it was kind of a funny start where his back end went out from under him. And I'm assuming that's just what we're pointing to. He lost the action there early and was never into it. And that's what we're pointing to is the poor performance in the Louisiana Derby.
Yeah, it was weird, and it definitely it got him out of his rhythm more than anything. And the good news there was, and I had said it all along, I felt like we were ahead of the game, where a lot of other horses were playing catch up. At that point in time, we had already had a couple nice efforts, and there was much said, well, you're going to have 6 weeks between races after the Louisiana Derby, and as it turned out, it was a nice thing to have those 6 weeks. So things happen for a reason, and we're happy to be here talking today about our Preakness win.
I assume so. And again, there was all the buzz after the Derby, certainly. So again, to come back and win the Preakness, and as I said, I pulled up last night your Equibase page, and there's that link of achievements and shows wins and things like the number of Sovereign Awards you've won and the number of Breeders' Cup races you've won. But your first Triple Crown race, where does that rank on the resume?
Well, that was the question right after the race. Where did it rank? And I don't know that at that point in time it had sunk in. But I'm going to sit and I'm going to tell you today that it's number 1. After much reflection, for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the biggest being that it is the Preakness. But what we had to overcome to get there was unbelievable, and we couldn't have done it. I only want to take a little bit of the credit. The big credit is to War of Will and just how talented he is. So you throw the Louisiana Derby, you throw the what happened to him in the Kentucky Derby, and he got roughed up pretty good in the Kentucky Derby. He was fine a couple days after, and then he started feeling a lot of, as it turns out, a lot of footsore horses in our barn after the Derby weekend, and a lot of it had to do with the track. There isn't a lot of cushion, so you're running on the bait, and he was pretty foot tender after that. I had said, because I based this on my wife, I said he was feeling the effects of 50,000 other women, 50,000 women that wore high heel shoes to the Derby. You know, they have to soak their feet for a few days afterward, and he was so to throw all those things at him, then to come back in 2 weeks and beat horses that had some rest. It was an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, and again, he did it in fine fashion, so more congratulations there. Is the game plan now, I've seen it being alluded to in the press, but is the game plan to head on to the Belmont? And how did he come out of the race, and how's he been doing this past week?
He came out of the race great. He trained super this morning. We've got him at Keeneland. Keeneland's a happy place for him, and more important,
it's a happy place for a lot of people.
It is. There's not as much concrete and paving there, and there's a lot of nice bluegrass, and he quite enjoys it. So he's doing a lot of munching right now and a lot of grazing. He grazes in the morning, he grazes in the afternoon, and it's a little more laid back, and that's why I wanted him to be there. Plus, the guy that has to get as much credit as anybody is David Carroll, who's there, and he's been getting on him every day, and so I just wanted him to be happy for a while. And the plan is, if all goes well, he'll have a breeze, about a week, 9 days out from the Belmont at Keeneland, and if he works well, comes out of it happy and healthy, he'll head to Belmont probably, I want to say, Sunday or Monday.
And let me ask you a broader question when it comes to that. You have this 5 weeks. You have the Derby, 2 weeks to the Preakness, 3 weeks to the Belmont. Do you have to train a little bit differently for this Triple Crown Series?
Oh, absolutely. I did it with Classic Empire, and I did it with Laura Will. You'll see us do very little in between. Mm-hmm. I thought we trained him extremely hard for us for the Derby, and he was a lighter, fitter horse for the Derby than he was for the Louisiana Derby. And then I could see he was even a little lighter for the Preakness. But I'm not so sure that's a bad thing. You don't see these long distance runners. They're not running around with a gut on them, or they tend to be a little. You and I aren't going to be any long distance runners, so I'm not so sure that sometimes those bigger, heavier horses, that's not the best thing for him. So he's a little on the lighter side. I'd like to see him. I would like to see him about the same size as he was for the Preakness, and we're trying to put a few pounds on him, but he's not going to do much. He's not going to do much in between.
And the obvious question is the 1.5 miles of the Belmont. Any concerns there, or is this just one of those things that everybody's trying it, so we won't know until it happens?
If I told you that I was absolute confident that he can go 1.5 miles, I'd be lying. And anybody that told you that their horse could go 1.5 miles, only horse I'm absolutely positive can go 1.5 miles is Sir Winston. I know Sir Winston can go 1.5 miles just by the way he runs, and he'll be in there as well. But I don't see any reason why Will can't. The key to all that is, and so many people don't get it, but speed wins the Belmont a lot of times. And the key will be for Tyler to get him to relax. If he will relax and take off when Tyler asks him to go, he'll go the 1.5 miles. So the first part of the race will be very important.
And again, congratulations on the win in the Preakness. Good luck going forward. And let's shift gears and talk about some of the other horses. You mentioned Sir Winston comes out of the second place in the Peter Pan, so the game plan for him is to move on to the Belmont?
It is. I'm extremely proud of Sir Winston because he was, I would say at this time last year, he would have been about our 25th best 2-year-old. Somewhere there, and it took him a while to catch on, but I kept telling Mr. Farmer, I said, I might be wrong. I think he's better than he's showing. I just think we need more ground, and he needs some speed to run at. And he's come along. I mean, I was amazed to see, that he ran the last quarter of a mile in the Peter Pan in 23-2.
Oh.
That's pretty impressive going a mile and an 8.
And so we'll look for a couple in the Belmont. I wanted to go back to and talk a little bit and maybe get some future plans for yet a nice week up at Woodbine. And so I wanted to hit on some of those because we're, of course, headed up for our annual trip to the Queen's Plate. And last weekend they had the Queenston up at Woodbine, and you ran 1-2 in there. We're going to look at the stretch run. Number 1, Federal Law gets it done. Number 4, My Silencer runs second. So it's a Casse exacta in there. But again, with both of these being Ontario breds, Federal Law, My Silencer, Queen's Plate in the sights for these two?
Well, not for My Silencer. My Silencer has some air issues that will stop him from being able to run that far. Federal Law, yes, I think we'll probably go back in the plate trial, and then, good effort there will get him in the Queen's Plate. The horse I have running on Saturday is the horse that I think is a really good horse. His name's Skywire, and
I've got that coming up, so we'll wait on that
okay,
replay.
I won't go. Okay, well, I'll wait till you get.
I'll let you touch on that because I'd like to hear more about him. He looked good in the last start too. But I wanted to touch again more on last weekend, the Celine up there. Again, a 1-2 finish in the Celine last weekend up at Woodbine with Power Gal and Preferred Guest. Power Gal is going to be number 2, Preferred Guest the number 3. But it is the War of Will team with Power Gal. Gary Barber owns, Mark Casse trains, a Japanese bred. This was a pretty nice performance from Power Gal. What's up next for her?
I don't know. There isn't really a whole lot right this second. I ran her back fairly quickly. She ran she ran this winter. I think we're just going to enjoy our victory for a little while and go from there. But it was definitely a nice warm-up. That was Preakness Day, and we had knock on wood, we had an unbelievable weekend. I think we won 5 stakes over that 3-day period, and she was one of them. And we have so many weekends where you don't do any good. It's always nice to have a great weekend. And so I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with her.
And she had won the Martha Washington down at Oaklawn. Let me ask you as a trainer, I had Brad Cox in the other day and asked him, because as a handicapper, I love the horses that come out of Oaklawn. For some reason, they seem to have a fitness level, and that next start when they go to other venues, I always kind of key on them. And Power Gal, as I say, a little earlier had won the Martha Washington. She'd been down at Oaklawn. You have horses that do run there. Do you find that horses that get maybe a little bit extra fitness from that Oaklawn meet?
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but they definitely did well. But if you look at the winner too, the fairgrounds horses have done extremely well too. It's just a nice environment. I'm really not sure why, but I think now I only had a small stable at Oaklawn this year, but the last time I had a large stable, I think I came out of there and was leading trainer at Keeneland. I may be wrong, but I think I was. And one of the things that we were so impressed with was how well our horses came out of Oaklawn.
Yeah,
and I didn't have a great Oaklawn meet. It wasn't like I had a great Oaklawn meet that year, but they came out of there did really well.
No, that's funny you say that, because as a handicapper, I say when I'm doing the handicapping show, I say, don't really get concerned with where they ran at Oaklawn. They come out and they do better when they move on. So it's funny to say that as well. And one more I wanted to go to last weekend, again on your great weekend, the Eclipse Super Tappet is going to get it done. Charlotte Weber's Live Oak Plantation, and as the super name would kind of indicate, the number 3 horse wins the Eclipse last Monday, actually, a Monday card. What's going to be next for Super Tappet? This one won the Sunshine Millions Classic earlier this year, and now wins the Eclipse last, as I say, Monday. What's next for him if you have plans for Super Tappet?
Yeah, the Dominion Days, which is, I think, about 6 weeks away. It's 1.25 miles. He's still a horse that continues to. It's hard to say when you just won a Grade 2, but he continues to disappoint me somewhat. I thought at one time that he could be one of the best. At one time, one of the better 3-year-olds in the country. Then now an older horse. There's still something there that we're not getting. I'm hoping as he continues to get older that at some point we see it. But he trains like he trains better than he runs, which happens a lot of times with Tappet, and they get better with maturity. So, he's a nice horse. When I watched the race, I thought we got beat the first time, and then when I watched slow-mo, we won. But he's better than that, and he's now 2 for 2 on the synthetic. So we're going to keep him on it there probably, and we may drift over now and then to the turf. There's some nice turf races at Woodbine as well.
Yeah, interesting. All right, let's get a little preview because you have some nice runners this weekend, and I wanted to touch on some of those. We alluded to it earlier. The Marine is on Saturday. It's race 3 at Woodbine Saturday afternoon. You've got a couple in there, Skywire and Hoffa's Union, but I wanted you to talk a little bit about Skywire. We're going to pull up the Wando from April 28th. Skywire is going to be the number 3 horse in here and wins it pretty easily in fine fashion. 3 wins and 4 career starts for this one. Again, Gary Barber owns in company with others, and talk a little bit about Skywire on Saturday afternoon in the Marine.
Skywire is a beautiful horse. I flirted with running him in the Bluegrass or even the Lexington. His one and only dirt race was at Gulfstream, and he won pretty impressively. But then I decided, let's go tackle and try to win the Queen's Plate. So that's why we went to the Wando. I thought his Wando performance was very good. One, he was still a little green down the stretch, and his running time. I've won a few Wandos, and I've won a lot of 3-year-old races at Woodbine. I can't remember one running as fast as he did when he won, and he won thinking that he could even went faster. He's come back and trained well. I'd be extremely disappointed that if he didn't win.
And again, in Ontario, Brett, I guess the game plan is Queen's Plate down the road.
It is. The plan is to run here and then go to the Queen's Plate.
I want to touch on a couple also at Churchill on Saturday. You have Let It Ride Mom in the winning colors. We're going to watch the Bessarabian from last November. Moonlit Promise, the number 12, will win. Silent Sonnet, the number 5, runs second. Let It Ride Mom, the number 2, runs third. That was her last start. That was last November. So obviously the question mark is the fitness level off the layup. But she's had a nice string of works down at Churchill Downs. What do you expect from Let It Ride Mom in the winning colors on Saturday?
I wouldn't worry about her fitness. She's ready to go. We had actually entered her in an allowance race last week and it didn't go. She trains extremely well on the dirt. We ran her on the dirt, I think, one time, and I can't remember, but it was Derby week, and we caught a terrible track, and she had some trouble in it. So it wasn't a true indication of her ability on the dirt. The winning colors is not an easy race, but she's going to run extremely well, I believe. She's training well, training very well.
And on the undercard, in an optional claimer, non-winners of 3, Catherine the Great makes her second start of the year. And I pulled up last summer's Schuylerville. Those of our viewers will remember this one. She's a nice winner of the Schuylerville, the number 1 horse, Catherine the Great. Came back on the turf at Churchill and ran 5th. But boy, that workout just the other day at Keeneland looks pretty good. What's the game plan with Catherine the Great? A little confidence builder in this optional claimer?
We're trying. You know, she beats her own drum, and some days you get the Catherine the Great, and sometimes you don't get the Catherine the Great, and you never know really what Catherine you're going to get. So you got to go on that. I can't give any. I can't give any guarantees or any promises on that one. Who knows? We're just trying to get her, as you just said. We're trying to get her confidence back and our confidence back in her.
And as I say, that one's on the undercard. Mark, before I let you go, a couple that I just wondering about for the future. Again, within the past week or so. Boy, you had a nice maiden winner, and we're going to take a look. This was Churchill Downs back on May 16th. A nice little 2-year-old filly named Perfect Alibi. She'll be the number 5 horse in here, and this is incredible. She pulls off and wins by a chart margin of 9.5 in the career debut. She was purchased last summer right up here at Saratoga, and as I say, this was the career debut. Perfect Alibi. We're watching the stretch run here. You had to be thrilled with this first start of the career. What's next for her? I know towards the end of the meet there's the debutante down at Churchill, but what do you have planned for Perfect Alibi?
Well, if anybody ever has followed my career and everything, I'm not one to. I usually winning first time out is not my goal, but that one I couldn't even screw up. I mean, she surprised me. She's a big, strong filly, and I kind of thought she would need one where she let herself get together and come running. And as we went a little farther, she would get better. She trained really well this winter at her training center, so that's why I sent her up early. So she was impressive. The plan right now is for you'll see her at Belmont. She's going to go and run, I think, 2 days before the Breeders' Cup in the Astoria.
Before the Belmont.
Yeah, before the Belmont.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is instead of waiting for the debutante, this farmer would love to try to run in the Schuylerville opening day at Saratoga. So the timing is better if we go ahead and run her, and she just has to prove she belongs.
Nice. And one more I wanted to touch on, just a little update on Chocolate Kisses. Going to pull up her win in the Honeybee this winter, again, down at Oaklawn. Chocolate Kisses is going to be the number 5 horse. She comes out of a 7th place finish in the Kentucky Oaks, but I saw that she had a workout just about a week ago, so I was wondering what the update was for Chocolate Kisses.
She was another one that came out of the Derby weekend with very sore feet. We think we've got her right now. She had a nice little breeze. The plan is to breeze her tomorrow a little bit, and as long as she comes out of that happy and healthy, we're going to go back to the turf, and we're probably going to take her to Penn National and run her there in that Philly turf race. I forget the name of it. We've won it a couple times, I believe, but I can't remember the name of it. I think it's the Penn Oaks.
Oh, right, sure. It's on that big Penn Mile card, right?
Yeah, we're going to take another horse that I really like called Moon Colony, who won at Fairgrounds and then had a troubled trip in the stake at Gulfstream, and I gave him some time out off. He's been training really well. Breathes fast this morning at Belmont. So he's going to go to the Penn, I think it's the Penn Mile, and she's going to the Penn Oaks.
Nice, very good. Mark, as always, we appreciate the time. We know you're very busy this time of year, all year long, really, but we appreciate you taking the time. And again, congratulations on the Preakness win, and good luck going forward, not only with War of Will and the Belmont Stakes, but your runners on Saturday afternoon as well.
I appreciate it. You have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Mark Casse, again, War of Will, winner of the Preakness, headed on to the Belmont Stakes. Thanks to Mark, one of the good guys, always very accommodating, and an interesting interview talking about War of Will, obviously. But boy, that nice maiden winner, perfect alibi. Maybe we can look for her in the Schuylerville up here at Saratoga, and much, much more. Again, appreciate the time from Mark Casse. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Jason Beem, again, yesterday announced as the new announcer at Colonial Downs, the revamped and reopening Colonial Downs. Currently, he's essentially filling in early part of the season for Frank Miramati at Monmouth Park, but because he's down at Monmouth, I thought maybe we'd get some opinions on the nice stakes action down there today as well. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
Pick, bet, and cheer on live racing from Woodbine and Mohawk Park. Thoroughbred and harness action. The wagers are just the beginning. Watch award-winning broadcasts covering both breeds, incredible battles contested over the most unique grass course in North America. Experience the full fields with over 130 thoroughbred and 160 live harness days. Get access to free handicapping material and join the ranks of Woodbine and Mohawk Park players from all over the globe. For more information, visit woodbine.com.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices, to know how to connect the dots? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool, but not the only tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. These too are important tools, and you'll find them all right here at Capital OTB. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. As promised before the break, we are joined now by Jason Beem. Currently, you hear him announcing at Monmouth, but nice announcement yesterday. He will become the announcer at Colonial Downs. We'll hit on all of that. Jason, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. I'm sitting in the Monmouth booth right now. It's a perfect day here in Jersey.
That's what we like to hear. It's a nice day here in upstate New York as well. Great way to kick off the holiday weekend, and we always enjoy the racing down at Monmouth. You've been doing a great job down there as well. We'll touch on Monmouth in a moment, but I want to go back to the announcement that came out just yesterday, Colonial Downs. You are now going to be the announcer at Colonial Downs. The meet kicks off on August 8th, runs through September 7th, the revamped Colonial Downs. I guess they haven't been racing there since, 2014. Talk about the excitement level, A, to be announced as the announcer down there, but B, it's got to be fun to kind of jump in for this, as I say, revitalized version of Colonial Downs.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things where, like, we'd come to an agreement on it a few months ago, and so, they wanted to wait a little closer to the meet for the announcement and everything, and so, I personally kind of already, made the plans. I already got my living situation ready to go, and just hadn't been able to tell anybody other than, my mom and some friends. So it's good to be able to do that. But, it's really neat. Joe Byrne and the team there are really, really going all out to try to make this thing not just work, but I think be a success. And so, their passion about the project really came across in talking with them. Murph Huber, who's going to be our handicapper, is someone I've actually worked with at Bet America, and I consider a friend, so I'm really excited to work with him. And one of the neat things about doing the announcing thing is you get to see new parts of the country, and I've never really spent any time in Virginia, so I'm excited as a history lover to go see that area. and I think that's also one of the potential charms for Kentucky or for Colonial Downs is to that it's one of the most historic areas in the country, and you can kind of turn it into a whole week-long trip if you come down.
Yeah, and we remember it from its first incarnation, great turf racing down there.
Yep.
It should be a lot of fun. I'm curious, did you have to swear your mother to secrecy?
My mom knows nothing about horse racing, and she knows nobody who is in horse racing.
So you were safe telling her.
So she's safe to say, and honestly, most of my friends are not racing people. I have a very split life of racing and non-racing, as I think a lot of folks do. But my mom, she always says, why do you have to always go to the East Coast? And my favorite line she had was, she goes, why don't you just get the job at Del Mar so you're close to home? And I said, oh, great idea. So, but no, I mean, I'm really excited. It's really cool to be part of, something new, because I always talk about, we've seen a number of racetracks close, and 9 times out of 9.5, when these racetracks close, they don't ever come back. And there's entire communities that don't have live racing anymore. Boston is going to be one of those soon.
Yeah.
Portland, unfortunately, is now one of those. And it just kills me that Portland is not going to have somewhere to go for live racing. So for the people in Virginia, I think it's a really, really great thing that this group is investing in racing in the state.
Yeah, and as you bring it up, I will tell people in our audience, if they get a chance to swing out to Suffolk over those last couple of weekends, they still have a couple weekends left. I went, not last summer, but the summer before. Man, that is a gorgeous facility. It's a shame that it's going to disappear. But as you say, Portland Meadows, and when we used to have you on the weekday show, when we were doing the Monday through Fridays, you were out at Portland Meadows, and so that's kind of going by the wayside as well. You've been out at Portland Meadows, you've been at Louisiana Downs, now you're at Monmouth. I'm curious, as you walk around these facilities and talk to people, is there a difference in the racing fan, the Great Northwest to the south to the east, or does everybody have a common interest if you're a racing fan?
They're all, I mean, the accents are different and the personalities are a little different, but there's a lot of symmetry between racing fans in every jurisdiction, and I think it boils down to, the love of the betting, the love of the horses, and, you just find commonality. And, I always talk, whenever you see someone on TV with a racing form, like on a TV show, like, don't you instantly just love that character more? And I think there's a bit of that with racing. It's almost like this, like Howard Stern fans all say Baba Booey, and it's like this secret little code between them. And I feel like with racing, it's a little bit the same way. And, the people here at Monmouth, the fans are really, really passionate about it. They love the local product. They follow the national product as well. And, racing is kind of provincial in that sense. I remember at Louisiana Downs, like, everybody followed Fairgrounds and Oaklawn. Like, those were the two biggest simulcast tracks. It wasn't NYRA. And so, people are provincial, but I think the love of the betting and the sport definitely comes through around the country.
And talk a little bit about Monmouth and how that's been this season. You're taking the early part of the season until Frank Miramati wraps up at Santa Anita, and then you'll move on again to Colonial Downs now. So a nice little summertime trip for you. But talk a little bit about the early part of the Monmouth season and how that's gone. And I will tell you, we're in doing the afternoon handicapping show 4 days a week and watching a lot of Monmouth. You've been doing a great job down there. But talk a little bit about the Monmouth season so far.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for that. I mean, certainly it's nerve-wracking. It's a big track, and, a lot of people are watching, and it's just new surroundings. It just takes a while. Just the sight lines, are different at every track, and so I feel like I'm getting comfortable more and more now. But, the field size, I mean, today's card is actually really, really good. Tomorrow's is pretty good as well. We do 13 today and 12 tomorrow, and the turf racing has been really, really fantastic. It seems like every race there's 8, 9, or 10 lining up to go on the grass races. Speed has been good, I think, as expected on both surfaces. The mile and the 16th races here, they kind of start in that chute, and so they're kind of like 2.5 turn races. Even the 5.5 furlong turf races to have a little bit of a turn in them, an extra turn in them, I should say. So it just seems to be beneficial not only to be up front, but kind of toward the inside. It seems like that's where a number of the winners are coming from. So, like I said, each track, the races flow a little different at each place. It's really neat to see the little intricacies of each track.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Whenever I talk to announcers, I always like to get some of that nuts and bolts, and I think you kind of alluded to it. Different circumferences present not necessarily different problems, I won't say that, but as you said, I think when you go to a track, and as again with a different circumference, you have to readjust to kind of, where's the quarter pole, and where is the real running going to start on this track?
For sure, and I mean, races are often kind of, at least as far as the race car, kind of segmented a little bit. I've heard Travis Stone refer to it as the Derby as a 4-act play. There's the run to the home stretch, then the getting through the whole field, the run into the far turn, and then the home stretch call. And that's true, I think, for most races. 6 furlong race, I want to try to be getting through the field right as they're getting to that opening quarter time, so I can say that, and then be back to the top of the field as they're going into the turn at the 3.5. And so when tracks do take a little bit different shape, you kind of have to adjust for that. And these 5.5 turf sprints, we've had like 3 or 4 of them now, and I feel like each time I'm kind of getting to the back of the field as they're, getting ready to go into that turn, which is kind of when I want to get to the back of the field. So each place is certainly unique, and this has been no exception.
I'm curious, you ever done a harness race?
I did one day of harness racing. I filled in at Century Downs in Calgary, Alberta, this past winter. They needed someone for their closing day, and Seattle and Calgary aren't that far apart, and I was friends with the guys that worked there. Unfortunately, I said the word running about 12 times during the card. And,
I hadn't even thought of that. That's probably like they're pacing or trot. That's so running's a no-no.
You know what I realized, Seth, about it is you spend years building up a vocabulary for different things that happen in a race. And when you're calling a race, you're pulling from that vocabulary of terms. And when I was calling harness racing, I was pulling from a completely incorrect vocabulary, because a lot of what you're saying during a race call, it kind of becomes a little second nature, and you're not, there's no script to it. And so you're just pulling from this vocabulary you have, for the words in between each horse's name and position. And switching up to harness for me was a great stride. And then the worst thing I did, some horse opened up at the top of the stretch, and I said, he's made a break for it. And then I realized in harness that making a break is not a good thing.
That's funny. I hadn't even thought about that, the different terminology. The thing that would get me is the saddle cloths, which are a different color. I watched the harness races sometimes. And I'll think, hey, I've won this bet, and then you realize, no, it's a different saddle cloth here.
Well, and because the drivers are behind the horses, when they're coming at you at the top of the stretch, you can't see the drivers at all. So you kind of become reliant on the saddle towels. Yeah, there was one race where the 2 and the 3 switcheroo got me back. It was not my. I mean, it was probably the worst day of announcing I've had from like a quality standard, but I knew it was just for fun, and I knew it was kind of just a neat little challenge, and it's a small track, so there weren't that many people watching.
And that's kind of why I asked. I think it is. People don't realize it's different. It's subtly different.
Way different.
But it's different. Interesting. All right, let's move on and get some of your opinions. Again, a nice stakes day down at Monmouth on this Saturday afternoon. You've already kind of alluded to it, but update us on what we can expect weather-wise today.
Oh, I mean, it's 65 and sunny. It's not supposed to get hot at all, which I love. And I mean, there's a little, as always, there's a little breeze off the water, but no, we'll be fast and firm, and clear skies, pleasant temperatures, all that good stuff.
All right, let's jump in and first take a look at the Monmouth. That'll be the 11th race this afternoon. Field of 8 scheduled, and it's a fun field. We're going to take a look at the Red Bank. That's going back to last year at Monmouth, and I wanted to show that because Synchrony has a pretty good record at Monmouth. I think Synchrony is going to take a lot of action. I certainly don't think he's a lock by any means, but Synchrony in this replay will be the number 2 horse. And again, this is going back to the beginning of September last year. Synchrony on the Monmouth course, 2 wins and a second in 3 starts. But I thought Bill Mott with Monarch's Glen could be interesting in the second start in the United States. Almanar for Chad Brown. Obviously, Chad Brown and Shadwell, that one will take some action. Irish Straight for Graham Motion is interesting to me. Mark it off with plenty of early speed. Projected, another Chad Brown, Chad and Juddmont. Again, it's a field of 8, but boy, you can go in a few different directions here. What did you see in the Monmouth?
Yeah, I'm curious to see who goes to the front, because I think if Up the Ante goes to the front, he could be an interesting price value. I didn't particularly care for projected effort in the cliffhanger here on opening day. He ran good, and he finished second, but I just thought he kind of had the run of the race and wasn't really, blowing by him down the stretch. And Hawkish to me looked beat on the far turn and came back and got a good split, but still ended up beating him. And Hawkish is a good horse, but to me it was just projected. I thought things kind of set up for him to win that day, and he wasn't able to do it. Synchrony, if you look, he kind of wins when he's supposed to, right? Like when he's 3-5 or even money or 7-5, he tends to run pretty big, which to me just says that he kind of runs his race every time, and if the waters are a little deeper, then he often doesn't win. So the two Monmouth wins, yeah, he's ran great on this course, but he was 3-5 in both of those, which tells me he was kind of supposed to win those ones. So to me, I'm leaning against both those ones. I found that the inside is a little bit better place to be, and I think that Up the Ante and possibly Irish Straight are going to be able to work out really good forwardly placed trips, and those are the two I like.
And we should also note here, for people who haven't necessarily been following Monmouth that closely, as far as jockeys, as people are playing today, anybody stand out so far early in the meet? Jockeys and or trainers that maybe early in the meet are kind of standing out a little bit.
Well, I mean, Jorge Navarro obviously is going to win a fair share around here. Jason Service has been pretty slow to start here this meet. He didn't have any the first day, and then he's kind of just been trickling in, and he's going to win his races. But he's had one or two really, really tough beats. But Isbarn has been a little bit slow to get going this meet. Jomar Torres has been off to a really nice start as far as the local riders. I mean, for these big stakes, obviously you're seeing Lescano come in and some of those other guys. Raylu Gutierrez, I think, is a nice young rider here. He's got a couple of wins, but he's also got a number of seconds and thirds, and one of his wins was on a 33-1 shot. And I think he has Jimmy Riccio booking his mounts, who also books for Jose Ortiz, and I think still for Joe Bravo. So, I definitely plan on would figure on him doing pretty well.
All right, let's move on and take a look at the Salvatore Mile, 3-year-olds and up, going, as the name suggests, a mile in a Grade 3 for $150,000. I'm going to pull up the Charlestown Classic from a few weeks back. Running to Love Ya, the number 8 winds up winning, but Diamond King, the number 3, runs second. I have liked Diamond King going back to the 2017 heft over at Laurel, and he's run nice races. He's not spectacular, but I thought this was a pretty good second here with a triple-digit buyer. That is going to attract a lot of attention. But again, I don't think he's necessarily a standout. Sunny Ridge for Jason Service, the aforementioned Jason Service, looks interesting. Bal Harbor for Todd Pletcher. California Night for Mike Maker with plenty of early speed. Jeremiah Engelhardt with Hoffenheim. I think on a best effort, this horse may be an interesting runner at a price. Again, I think you could go a number of different directions in the Salvatore Mile. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this one is certainly going to be speedy up front early with that long shot, the 5, who looks like kind of try to run off and steal it if you can. I just think Diamond King might fall into a really, really good spot in second and kind of get first run. And on these, on the dirt races, it's just good to be forwardly placed here at Monmouth. My kind of long shot horse I kind of like, who I think is actually might be a little bigger than the 6-1 morning line, is Nanouche. That there was just nobody really closing in that Charlestown Classic, and if you kind of forgive the horse for that, then some of his better efforts are not too bad. And so I thought maybe an interesting horse, for Jorge Navarro picking up. The horse was with Robertino, and so I thought maybe an interesting long shot. And Sunny Ridge is a classy, old horse, and he's a Jersey bred, so he's done well here in New Jersey. He might get, he might just be better and get the run of the race. I just think he's going to be a short price, and my instinct is to always try to beat favorites.
All right, let's move on to the Boiling Springs. Race 7 on this Saturday afternoon on the grass at a mile and a 16th. $75,000 for 3-year-old fillies. Nice full field in here of 11 with one also eligible. I'm going to pull up an allowance optional claimer from April 10th over at Aqueduct. The winner will be number 3, Beautiful Lover. I'm kind of tilting in that direction just because it's Chad Brown, Paul Pompa, and again, coming off of a couple of wins, including this one most recently. But Karama for Michael Pino is also interesting. The 10 horse with a couple of nice races so far, but on the dirt. I think the stretch out on the move to turf is kind of interesting. Claus is another Chad Brown, Ready to Tango from Todd Pletcher, Her Royal Highness from Graham Motion. Again, this one, a nice full field in here, and I think a fun competitive field. Your thoughts in the Boiling Springs?
Yeah, I think you surmised it pretty well. I'm always a little leery of Gulfstream dirt figures with Karama because the buyers are higher than most everybody else in this race. But I'm always a little leery of those bigs coming up to other parts of the country. Let me give you my kind of long shot horse that I like a little bit, and that's the number 2 Trailblazer. If this horse wins, I'm going to sound good because I've mentioned this on a couple of places. But the start last time, the horse ran third, but was breaking from the outside. The horse that won flipped up the rail. The horse that was second was on the lead the entire way, and this horse just kind of found himself a little bit wide and a little bit far back, and finally started making an impression. And I thought actually put in a pretty decent last furlong. I love that the horse now draws back toward the inside because, it was only a 7-horse field last time, but this horse was on the far outside and did break a little bit out. So I think at a potentially big price, I think if Trailblazer can improve and kind of show what I think the horse can do, it could have a little bit of a say here.
I like it 12-1 on the morning line. And when I do the afternoon show today, I'll toss that out there as well. So we'll give you a little juice should it win this afternoon also. Jason, before we let you go, I want to touch on a couple other topics. And for folks who aren't familiar, everybody on social media knows Jason Beem is the Beemy Awards, at Beemy Awards, the Twitter handle. And I'll tout people to pop over to your website if folks aren't familiar with it. I would say, how would you label best of the racing internet with a wink and a nod? I would say a wink and a nudge. But if folks want to see the most recent Beemy Awards, go to jasonbeem.com and kind of scroll down, and I guarantee you'll have a smile and a laugh. And what was the impetus for kicking off the Beemy Awards?
Boredom. I was actually the day. I think the day before I got him was when I got announced I was going to, or the day before I did him the first time was the day I announced I was going to Louisiana Downs. So I almost didn't do him because I was like, maybe they don't want their new announcer being a kind of a bonehead. But it wasn't like I promoted it or anything. I just thought it would be funny to do like an awards show of like goofy things that happen on racing Twitter because Lord knows there's a lot of that. And everybody seemed to like it the first year, so I did it up a little bigger the next year. We started incorporating video stuff, and I have some friends help me write jokes, and it's just kind of grown each year. I mean, we have like Little Red Feather sponsors it now. Sim Horse Racing sponsors us, and so it's become this whole little thing. And we usually do it at December or January, depending on my schedule. And to me, I look at it as just a 3-hour comedy show, and I just want to make people laugh and kind of have a fun time, with horse racing a little bit as the center of everything.
Yeah, and I will admit I have my problems with social media. There are things I like and things I don't like. Twitter, I think, can go either way. There are cranks on there that just infuriate me, but I think there are great uses, and I like guys like Grenig and Welch. You can keep up with races in fine fashion, and I think that's what it is well used for. But the Beemy Awards is one of the better uses of it as well, and folks want to tune in when you do it live. That's fun, but they can also catch up with the follow-up, as they say, jasonbeem.com. But I also wanted to tout and let you talk a little bit about it, because we had you on a few years ago when your book came out, and I checked, still available on Amazon.com, and I think we have a shot of the cover, Southbound, by Jason Beem. And for folks who aren't familiar, just update us on what the book was about and your reasons for writing the book.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Southbound just had its 5th birthday, and my original publishing contract was 5 years, and we sold enough to where they wanted to keep it out.
Oh, nice.
So it'll be out there for a little bit more, and hopefully forever. But it was kind of I used my background a little bit just as an announcer in a small track, and it was kind of playing out the fantasy of wanting to just load up all your money and move to California and try to make a run at playing the races full time, but trying to do that while not being a responsible bettor and kind of the things that can happen with that. And touched on I've struggled pretty severely in my life with anxiety and depression issues, so it kind of tackles a little bit of that. And it was honestly a journal entry that kind of just went awry, and I found it to be a really, really rewarding experience to write and to do the whole book process. And I worked with a really fun independent publisher, and they were helpful with the whole thing. And I about 4 or 5 months ago, someone bought the movie rights, so we're deep in script ideas, but it'll be a lot different. The movie plan is they kind of want to change things up a little bit, but it's fun to kind of revisit those characters after a few years. And I hadn't ever read the book once. Because by the time you're done with it, the last thing you want to do is read that book again, because you've gone through and edited it, hundreds of times. And I finally went back through and read it before we started working on the movie thing, and it was interesting because even just 5 years later, like, there's things in there I would never write now as a 39-year-old versus a 33-year-old or whatever when I wrote it. So it was interesting to look back at that.
That's really interesting. Options, so maybe we can look for it. But they do. Don't feel bad. They do that with all kinds of books. So the movie never winds up the same. But
I was told that by a few different writer friends when we were kind of doing the negotiations, and what I kind of view it as is they kind of just wanted to use South Bend as a little bit of a jumping off point to tell a racing story, and so I'm fine with that. And it took me a few days to kind of drop the, like, hey, this is the story, dang it. Why, but it's still fun. It's just fun to be creative.
Oh, absolutely. And again, as I say, I looked last night of people, and it's that season. You want a book for the beach or by the pool, swing by Amazon and pull up Southbound, and you can grab it.
It's the feel-good story of the summer, so.
I'll keep that in mind. I'll mention it a couple more times. I like that. Jason, again, appreciate the visit. Enjoy the rest of your time at Monmouth. As I say, you've been doing a great job so far. We look forward to listening to you a little bit later on this summer at Colonial Downs, and congratulations on that new gig.
Yeah, excited for Colonial. I'm really excited.
Jason Beem, we'll talk to you again in the future.
Thank you, Seth.
And again, Jason, you can hear him at Monmouth. A great Stakes Day today at Monmouth, and nice holiday weekend, it looks like, weather-wise, so should be some nice racing down at Monmouth, and we'll look for Jason a little bit later on down at Colonial Downs. And again, check out his book. As I say, I checked just last night, available on Amazon.com. Before we go, I did want to hit on, there we go, one news item. I mentioned it yesterday on OTB Live, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned it here. They came out with the betting menu for Belmont Stakes weekend, and there are some guaranteed pools and whatnot, but I just wanted to mention there's one bet that I think is going to be fun to see what happens with it. They are going to have a 20-cent pick six bet that will cover some of the stakes action on Friday and Saturday. Will end with the Belmont Stakes. So it'll be a 2-day pick six at a 20-cent increment, but it's not a jackpot bet. It's a standard pick six, but at a 20-cent increment over a couple days. Now, they haven't specified which races yet. They're going to wait and see, until the races are pulled, and I think decide then, looking at field size and whatnot. But I think this will be a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting to see what the pool is and what the payout is and whatnot. But a 2-day 20-cent pick six Friday and Saturday of Belmont Stakes weekend down in New York. Also wanted to mention, if you are thinking about maybe a job up at the Saratoga Racecourse, the NYRA annual job fair is coming up in Saratoga Friday, June 14th, Saturday, June 15th. It'll be at the Embassy Suites. On the Friday, it's 10 to 6. On the Saturday, it's 9 to 2. But again, we're looking at a couple more weeks away, 3 weeks away. And that'll cover they have a list of the jobs that are covered: parking, cashier, betting clerks, turf work, general labor, security guy. I mean, it's really everything that's going to be available for summer employment at the track. So again, the job fair, Embassy Suites, June 14th and 15th. If you're looking for perhaps a job up at the track this summer, keep that in mind. All right, top of the hour, so I'm going to wrap things up. Certainly appreciate the visit from Jason Beem. A little bit earlier, we talked with Mark Casse. Appreciate his taking the time as well. Want to thank our friends at Woodbine for their sponsorship. Woodbine, pick, bet, and cheer on great racing north of the border. And again, we talked with Mark Casse a little bit about potential Queen's Plate runners, and we're looking forward to our visit to the Queen's Plate in just a few weeks up at Woodbine. Should be a lot of fun. I am going to step back and do a little more handicap and a little marking up of the scratches and whatnot. Be back in probably a couple hours or so with OTB Live for this Saturday afternoon. Stay tuned for that. Tomorrow morning, back on with more Racing Across America, stakes recaps, and more. That's tomorrow morning at 10. But again, we'll be back in a couple hours with OTB Live for Saturday afternoon. See you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.